You know, something that has been really bothering me lately, has been really on my mind, is just how stupid America is getting, how stupid our national conversation is becoming. And it's an axiom of this show. We say it all the time, that politics makes you stupid because politicians have a stake in inflaming your emotions over issues of the moment, and it makes you get passionate about things and you forget the more important issues, like limiting the power of the powerful and making sure we remain free from those wise elites who are going to make the world utopia if we just get out of the way. You get so excited about the issue of the moment that you want to solve it by any means necessary. And politicians like to do that to you, and it makes you stupid. So when everything becomes political, then everything makes you stupid. And that, I think, is the state of America today. And you can see it happening in the culture. You can see it happening in the way that people have stopped doing their job in order to change the world and make the world a better place. And the interesting thing is, if you do your job, the world becomes a better place. If you try to make the world a better place, the world sucks. So let me give you an example from showbiz where I've worked from time to time. Here's a story you might have missed while you were I know you were all thinking about Prince Harry's wing-wang, the British call it a todger, Prince Harry's todger. I don't know if you heard it. You must have heard it. Everybody's heard this. He brought out this book, Spare. It is the fastest-selling book, I think, in history. And he talks about, while he's slagging off everybody, he's attacking everybody in the royal family. He talks about how he got frostbite during an Arctic expedition on his todger, and he healed it. So listen to it. He reads it himself. Let's just cut one.
My penis was oscillating between extremely sensitive and borderline traumatized. The last place I wanted to be was Frostnipistan. I'd been trying some home remedies, including one recommended by a friend. She'd urged me to apply Elizabeth Arden cream. My mum used that on her lips. You want me to put that on my todger? It works, Harry. Trust me. I found a tube, and the minute I opened it, the smell transported me through time. I felt as if my mother was right there in the room. Then I took a smidge and applied it down there.
Okay, that didn't upset me at all. I'm not a Freudian, but when you're using your mother's lip cream on your todger, you might want to get on the phone to Vienna. So that's what we're thinking about. That's what everybody's really concerned about, Harry and his todger. And I guess, they also call it a Willie in England, so I guess his brother is Prince Willie, and he has Prince Willie's Willie. But anyway, you might have, while you were paying attention to that, you might have missed this another story. This week, the Biden administration extended the COVID-19 public health emergency. Did you know this? That they extended the public health emergency with the excuse that a new Omicron subvariant called XBB.1.1.5 might cause more hospitalizations. Now, I don't even know if you heard about this, right? The state of emergency is now 3 years long because people are getting the flu, right? This is why. And that gives the government certain powers. They can do things in a state of emergency they can't do normally. This, by the way, is in spite of the fact that two people in the field of economics, a guy named Rob Arnott and another Casey Mulligan, who was Trump's chief White House economist, published a study based on data from the Centers of Disease Control that found that non-COVID excess deaths during lockdown totaled nearly 100,000 a year. And that's probably a lower number because they were counting people as COVID deaths when they had COVID but might have died by being run over by a garbage truck, right? So in other words, deaths from accidents, overdoses, alcoholism, and homicide all soared as did deaths from hypertension, heart disease, and diabetes. So it's very possible to argue that lockdowns and other health measures taken in the name of government, our welfare by the government under an emergency, actually cost us lives during the pandemic. That they not only ruined our economy, they not only ruined our businesses, they not only ruined our lives, they killed us, all right? So now there's a new variant of Omicron, what is it called? This XBB.1.5. Here's how this was discussed on Jimmy Fallon's Tonight Show. Cut 2.
There was Alpha, then Delta, then Omicron next. But this latest variant might be the best. It's XBB.1.5. Another brand of COVID-19 has arrived. It's a new strain, but it isn't the same. Sounds more like Elon Musk's kid's name. It's XBB.1.5. When you're inside a facility, it could be a robot from a Star Wars trilogy.
That made me stupid just listening to it now. I actually lost several IQ points. However, here is the point about late night TV, right? Probably most of you have at this point given up on late night TV because all they do is insult you. And I'm delighted that my pal Greg Gutfeld is doing great. His cable show is beating out network show, but that's not the point. Greg Gutfeld is a political commentator who is very funny. He's got a really good sense of humor, but he's still a political commentator. The job of being a late night host, right, is not like the job of being a comedian. Comedians have vision. They're artists. They stand up in nightclubs where you pay to see them. You went to see Dave Chappelle or Bill Burr, and they can say anything they want because you're there to see them particularly. But a late night host on a network has a specific job, which is to bring people together, basically. Everybody is supposed to watch the networks. The networks come under FCC rules, so they're public airwaves, that you are speaking to the whole public, right? Now, one of the guys who invented the late night host spot was Johnny Carson. Now people have forgotten who he was, but for 30 years, between 62 and 92, he just owned late night TV. He did The Tonight Show before Jay Leno and now before Jimmy Fallon. And the show was originally created by a guy named Steve Allen, another guy named Jack Parr, two extremely important comedians, but they've been completely forgotten. But Johnny Carson, people still remember. And he would come on and everybody watched him. Everybody watched his monologues when he came on, and he'd make some jokes and he'd joke about Democrats. He was a Democrat, but he'd joke about Democrats. He'd joke about Republicans. Everybody laughed. We laughed at each other. We laughed at ourselves because we knew he was going to make fun of everybody. Toward the end of his career, Mike Wallace asked him why he didn't get more serious about politics. Here's what he said.
People say he'll never take a serious controversy.
Well, I have an answer to that. I said, now, tell me the last time that Jack Benny, Red Skelton, any comedian, used his show to do serious issues. That's not what I'm there for. Can't they see that?
But you're not...
Why do they think that just because you have a Tonight Show that you must deal in serious issues? That's a danger. It's a real danger. Once you start that, you start to get that self-important feeling that what you say has great import. And you know, strangely enough, you could use that show as a forum. You could sway people, and I don't think you should as an entertainer.
That's amazing pride and humility at the same time. He's proud of what he does. He's comparing himself to the greatest comedians who ever lived, Jack Benny and people like that. But he's saying that's not what we do as great comedians. What we do is we make people laugh. We entertain people. Now, as our culture, as he went along and he owned the field. Other guys who were inspired by him tried to compete with him. Dick Cavett, who couldn't compete with him and ended up with a PBS show, was an excellent interview show. And of course, Dave Letterman, who was very offbeat, and he could never beat Carson in the ratings, but he did make a stand on late night. Guys like Andrew Breitbart loved him. He was very creative and very original. After 9/11, shortly after I returned from England, after being out of the country for 7 years, 9/11 happened. And Letterman had this moment which changed late night TV forever. And it actually changed my life. He actually went on. You can't find it anymore. They've taken it down from the internet, which is really interesting because he's probably embarrassed by it now. But people like to talk about it like it was a really important thing when he came on and he discussed the fact that we had been attacked by these Islamic extremists. And I had just come back from England. I'd been away. And he said, I'm watching this. And he said, I have to think about why do they hate us? And I thought, what has happened to my country while I was gone that a powerful, famous comedian would ask why fascists hate us? They're supposed to hate us. It's like saying, why does that nice Mr. Hitler hate us? He's supposed to hate us. Stalin is supposed to hate us. Bernie Sanders is supposed to hate us and does, right? We don't ask why. We know why, because he's a communist. This was an amazing thing, and this suddenly gave late night people the idea that they were important voices in the culture. Jay Leno also went on and made a speech. Listen to him. He was the guy who inherited from Carson. He was in the mold of Carson, and what he said struck me as so honest and so basic and true. This was the beginning of my becoming an outspoken conservative because I said somebody has got to answer the culture, and conservatives don't know anything about the culture, and I do. But it was David Letterman who did this. But here was Jay Leno's response.
You know, in a world where people fly airplanes into buildings for the sole purpose of killing innocent people, a job like this seems incredibly irrelevant. You know, normally I would be out here making fun of Democrats, making fun of Republicans, and you realize we don't have Democrats or Republicans anymore. We only have Americans, and we have Americans united in one goal for one reason. But you know, we still have a job to do. And I don't pretend that this is an important job. You know what this job is? This job is like a cookie to those firemen. That's what we do. You know, we're standing there with a cookie, we're standing there with a glass of lemonade. You know, when those people get home after a hard day, we're not trying to make anybody forget. We're just trying to take their mind off it for a minute. You know, you watch this horrible carnage on television, and I don't know, maybe a silly joke can help. Maybe something a little funny can help.
Again, humility, right? He's doing his job. His job is to make jokes. He's not a nightclub comedian. He's not Lenny Bruce. He's not Bill Burr. He's on this huge network speaking to an entire country. And if he makes us laugh at one another, he can also make us laugh at ourselves, right? If he goes on there and he makes fun of Donald Trump, but he also makes fun of Hillary Clinton, right? Hillary Clinton is certainly no better than Donald Trump and maybe worse, but all we heard was how evil Donald Trump was and Hillary Clinton is a feminist icon. When that happens, then half the country knows that it's under attack from these people instead of being brought together. Make fun of Donald Trump and make fun of Hillary Clinton, then we conservatives will laugh at Donald Trump and then laugh at Hillary Clinton. And liberals, I won't call them that leftists, there's nothing liberal about them, but leftists will laugh at Donald Trump, but they'll also laugh at Hillary Clinton because they see, okay, America is a funny place, freedom is a funny thing, democracy is hilarious, you know, it's all funny, it all is funny. Instead, what you get is egotistical, spineless corporate shills like Stephen Colbert and all these guys who are so rebellious, so amazingly original, so incredibly radical that they all agree with one another and the corporations and Hollywood and the big government. That's how what incredible resistance they are, making jokes like this about Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump. Listen to this.
A new Wall Street Journal poll says that in a hypothetical GOP primary matchup, DeSantis beats the former president 52% to 38%. Yay? Also maybe boo? It's hard to know who to root for here. It's like a poll between gonorrhea and a slightly more racist gonorrhea.
Now, that's not even middle school funny, you know, comparing people to gonorrhea. That is really, it's actually not like just literally not funny. But sometimes Colbert has a million writers. Sometimes he hits a joke that's funny. But what is he doing? He's making the world a better place by making us hate one another because you can't laugh if you know the guy that you're voting for is going to be called gonorrhea, but the other person is going to come on and do an interview while he fawns over her. And that is a real problem. By doing your job, like Jay Leno, like Johnny Carson, by doing your job, you actually improve the world. You actually improve it. By not doing it, you make everybody hate one another. And that is the thing that is making us incredibly stupid. You know, there's a comedian I think he's an Irish comedian. His name is Andrew Doyle. You probably know him as Titania McGrath. He does this funny woke woman on Twitter. And he's actually a very bright guy. And he wrote an article saying the religion of critical social justice has spread at an unprecedented rate, partly because it makes claims to authority in the kind of impenetrable language that discourages the sort of criticism and scrutiny that would see it collapse upon itself. The tactic of deliberately restricting knowledge produces epistemic closure, means you can't know anything. It's a hallmark of all cults. The elitist lexicon of critical social justice not only provides an effective barrier against criticism and a means to sound informed while saying very little, but also signals membership and discourages engagement from those outside the bubble. This accounts for their hostility to debate. The fact that they can demonize people, that the fact that now they're just enclosed with themselves, because we stop watching, we're not watching Colbert because all he does is insult us. Now he's surrounded by people who agree with him. Only all his audience agrees with him. So he's cut off from the fact that he's living in a big country with people who disagree. He doesn't serve them anymore. The New York Times is the same way. All of these comedians, all of these guys are the same way. And so ultimately we begin to feel that there's nothing to debate about because there's no one to debate with because the other side is demonic. And ultimately we get things like this. I mean, there are laws going on right now. There are laws being made to protect women, I think, from transgender people who say, I'm a woman, so I can go and use the women's bathroom, women's sports, protect children from being butchered and all this. They're debating these laws. Some of them may be good, some of them may be bad in different states. But on MSNBC, we get a trans reporter named Joe Yerkaba who says even the debate is harmful. Here she is, or he is.
Advocates in Texas have told me that they expect things to get a lot worse before they get better. And so even if these bills don't pass, they say they still have an impact. A recent national survey, for example, from the Trevor Project found that 85% of trans and non-binary youth across the country said debates on this legislation have negatively impacted their mental health. So advocates have told me that, these bills will continue to other trans people generally, including adults who already face higher rates of violence, medical discrimination, and homelessness. So even just the debate created by these bills has a negative impact, they say.
People become smart through the exchange of ideas. They become smart by listening, because if you don't listen, you just got your own mind. You're just a rat caught in a trap in your own mind. The left, by making everything political, the left has created a culture of stupid. They're stupid, and we become stupid too, because we're not hearing anything that we can debate with. We're just hearing that we're gonorrhea. We're just hearing that. If people do their jobs, if they have that meta sense that you do a job above your politics, above your opinions, you make the world a better place. But when everything becomes politics, when everything becomes partisan, when you're making the world a better place, you make the world worse by making everybody stupid because you simply didn't do your job. Man, that was amazing. You want more great content like that? Like and subscribe. And also subscribe to The Andrew Klavan Show wherever you get your podcasts.